while back with the release of Megan 2.0, one of my least favorite people on the planet interviewed the killer robot herself and asked about everyone's favorite band of animatronics. This sparked a short conversation about how Megan would fare against Fnaf's animatronics, but unfortunately for Blumhouse's Superman, whatever that was about, she most likely loses a 1v1 against 90% of the roster. To be fair, I haven't seen Megan 2.0, so if she has a crazy feat of soloing armies of superhumans and tanking huge explosions, then let me know in the comments, I guess. But during all of this, another character was brought up. The Janitor, an animatronic killer from Willy's Wonderland. Yep, that's his name. Everyone had their surface level opinions, but I rewatched the movies, read the comics, and revisited the Fnaf games to answer, can the Janitor solo the Fnaf universe? We can kick it off with the star of the show, Nick Cage brooding and being cool, or farming, as the kids would say. Willy's Wonderland and its animatronics are heavily based on Five Nights at Freddy's and its own animatronics, but where the Fnaf robots are possessed by the souls of children, Willy and his pals are possessed by crazy psychos who kill people for fun. And to figure out whether or not the Janitor can take on the Fnaf universe, we have to see how the animatronics themselves stack up to each other. Unlike in Fnaf, Willy and Co retain their knowledge, speech, and whatnot from when they were human, so they can still talk, fight, or even use weapons like nail guns or set bear traps. They all have feats of easily taking on and overpowering, dismembering, disemboweling, crushing, and killing regular people. Gus the Gorilla, even as a human, was able to kill his boss with a single punch. And Sarah Siren is a pretty skilled fighter both as a human and an animatronic. Aside from with weapon usage, no one has been able to put up a fight with them at all. As for durability, they're able to shrug off all physical attacks from regular people, for the most part. Seems like even clankers aren't immune to the almighty nutshot. Most impressively, a few of these guys are able to walk off gunshots, including point-blank shotgun blasts. They're also surprisingly fast, being able to quickly disappear and reappear as the lights flash. It's so fast that it borders on teleportation, but we never see any of them poof away on screen and reappear somewhere else. We actually do see the sirens scurry away on the walls at alarming speeds, so it's safe to assume that this is their movement speed and not just teleportation. And we see multiple of them pull something like this off, so I think it's fair to put all of them around this level of speed. So superhuman strength, durability to withstand gunfire, with the speed to move faster than eyesight. And despite all of that, the Janitor was able to completely annihilate these guys with no issue. Even when he was caught completely off guard while he was still under the assumption that his job was simply janitorial duty and not one night at Willy's, he blocked one of the ostrich's attacks with a broom and defeated him pretty handily, by, you know, ripping his spine out. The gorilla seems to be the strongest physically and has the best durability showings in the comics, and Nick was able to overpower him and curb stomp his head in, or urinal stomp, which is probably worse. This alone should mean that the Janitor is strong enough to pull off similar feats like crushing someone to death or killing someone with a single blow. Other animatronics like the chameleon can easily swing two people around at once and snap necks with her tongue, but couldn't do the same to the Janitor. Or the alligator, who's been seen crushing heads with his bite, was simply overpowered by the Janitor using his bare hands. He's able to easily keep up and fight with the speedier guys like the siren, alligator, and turtle, who can quickly move around between light flashes. He even took on the siren and chameleon at the same time while having his hands zip tied behind his back, and it must have just been for fun because he breaks out of them minutes later. He can take hits from each and every one of the animatronics no problem. I mentioned the gorilla and the chameleon, but even the ostrich was able to pierce skulls with its beak, and those same attacks only left small cuts on Nicky here. His most impressive durability feat was when he took on multiple slashes from Willy himself. Willy just moments before fighting the Janitor slashed a woman in two with a single swipe, and those same attacks just left a few gashes on him. This level of power is consistent in the Willy's Wonderland comic books, so it wouldn't make sense to think that Willy was suddenly not trying to kill the Janitor. Nick got out of the ball pit and absolutely destroyed Willy. Mortal Kombat Sub-Zero fatality. Just no remorse at all. He did put his hands up when held at gunpoint and allowed himself to be zip-tied, so I guess that's where the line is drawn. I should also mention the Janitor's energy drink, Punch. We don't know if it's actually a performance enhancer or if it's a stand-in for like Red Bull. A character in the comic drinks it and says he feels like he can take on the entire world, but he gets no diff later on in that same issue, so. The movie treats the drink as kind of a video game power-up, but as we saw in the comic, it's not gonna hard carry someone who would otherwise be incapable of fighting. The Janitor sets timers to let him know when he has to take breaks, which he follows to the T, refusing to fight until his break was finished. And these are stand-ins for like video game checkpoints, but I don't really feel like either point is important or changes the outcome of this fight. So with the Janitor from Willy's Wonderland out of the way, we can move on to the Fnaf verse. There are a lot of animatronics, most of which are featless, so I won't be going over each and every individual from Fredbear to the Mimic. I'll also be taking their composite versions since it wouldn't make too much sense to go over the books, games, and movie versions as separate power levels, since there shouldn't be too much contradiction there. This is power scaling, not lore. thank God. The Fnaf animatronics don't have any insane showings throughout the series since their opponents tend to be average people and, literal children, but here's the baseline stats for 90% of the animatronics going forward. They're all strong enough to easily overpower most grown adults. In the newspaper in the first game, dismemberment is mentioned, so we can assume that this is something they're all capable of doing, as well as stuff Mike Schmidt into an animatronic suit, killing him in the process. They also have the bite force to crush skulls or just bite people in half. The fun times are made of much higher tech than the previous animatronics, and in the books we see Baby impale Charlie with her own arm. These games are so crazy and get even crazier. The twisted ones can burst straight through walls, which should also scale to their durability, and the original animatronics absolutely destroyed them in a fight, therefore scaling them to or above this level of power. As for durability, they don't really have much. They're big, bulky, and hundreds of pounds of metal, so they should be at the very least as durable as the metal they're made out of. But we do see normal people tussle with these guys. John in the books was straight shoulder checking and fighting the animatronics mano a mano. Okay, maybe not mano a mano, but still impressive. We have seen on multiple occasions that most animatronics throughout the many decades in universe can keep it pushing despite all the damage they take. We do see that they're extremely susceptible to electricity though. In the movie, a simple taser was enough to take them down. In the books, Charlie KO'd Chica with an exposed wire, and in sister location, the controlled shock gets the fun times in line, so this is consistent between each canon. The Fnaf verse is surprisingly fast though. Calculations made by people much smarter than me put them in the superhuman to subsonic range, so like fast enough to get a speeding ticket in a residential area, regularly blitzing people faster than they can react, and appearing in places so quickly that it seems like teleportation. These stats cover most animatronics, but there are 3 characters I want to talk about specifically: William Afton, Golden Freddy, and the Mimic. We can start off with the game's biggest bad and my personal favorite character from the franchise, Springtrap. Old Willie, even as a regular guy, was able to take on the animatronics and dismantle them. These are shown in short 8-bit minigames, so it's not clear whether there was a struggle at all or if he just got the jump on them and essentially one-shot them. On top of that, William, being one of the creators of the animatronics, has much more knowledge on them than your average person and knows exactly how to work around their better physicals. Regardless, breaking them down before they broke him down is impressive. But he isn't particularly durable as a human though, since he was killed via spring lock. But as Springtrap, he should be at the same level as the animatronics that I've mentioned, at least physically, with the added benefit of surviving Fazbear Frights being burned down, despite fire being one of the few ways animatronics can be quote-unquote killed. But what makes him much more dangerous in my opinion is his intelligence, being much more aware of who and what he is than the others. Kinda like the ones from Willy's Wonderland actually, since he can still talk, plan things out, and think for himself. He may have access to some of the tech from around the years, namely the illusion discs from the books, although I believe it was Henry that created them. William did utilize them to make the twisted animatronics seem more frightening than they are, and they can completely distort someone's perception of reality, like when Charlie was being chased and surrounded by dozens of balloon boys. As for Golden Freddy, we don't really see much from him, at least not physically. It's possible that he killed the phone guy, but we don't know how or what he did to him, so he is much more paranormal than the rest since he doesn't move and doesn't have a proper jump scare, at least in the first game. I should mention that he was able to hold William's soul hostage in his own personal limbo, along with all the other souls. The thing with using that as a feat for this fight is that I don't believe this is something Golden Freddy, or Cassidy, I guess, can just do. If it was, then he surely would have just ripped William's soul out before he died in Pizza Simulator. Hell, he would have done it before he even became Springtrap. So I assume that he was only able to do it after William had died. And that leaves us with the Mimic, the newest main antagonist of the series and the one with the most physical showings. The Mimic is able to copy the voices of those it hears, as well as pick up on their emotions, replicating that as well. But that part's not important. The Mimic is relentless, able to survive large falls, being run over, and being physically abused for long periods of time. It also has some pretty solid strength feats, like bending a metal beam with the force of his grip, beating Roxanne Wolf off screen, and lifting large platforms over its head. He only fell here because the floor gave way and not because he couldn't hold it. He was defeated in one of the endings in the Ruin DLC, but it's also possible he survived the scooper. He's also extremely fast, in the book being stated to move short distances in a nanosecond. This is most likely an exaggeration to emphasize just how fast he was moving, but this should at the absolute least put him at the same speed as the other animatronics, if not faster. So the Janitor versus the entire Fnaf verse. Who would win? First, let me say that with the sheer amount of animatronics in the franchise, there's no way that the Janitor can take all of them on at the same time. That'd be like 100v1, especially if you count the books and alternate forms of the same characters. But if you replace the main characters of each game with the Janitor, so like the Mike Schmidts and the Jeremy Fitzgeralds, how would it play out? Not well for the Fnaf side. The Janitor would genuinely be a problem for these guys. Very rarely do the games have protagonists who fight back physically. We can assume that the animatronics in Fnaf and Willy's Wonderland are made of similar materials. The Fnaf ones obviously look sturdier, but that's just a real life difference in budget. The Janitor should easily be handling the original 4 just as easily as the ones from Willy's. The only problem would be Golden Freddy, since if we assume that he did kill the phone guy, then there's obviously some way he can harm people, we just haven't seen how. Fnaf 2 would just be more of the same, even with the fancy schmancy toy animatronics. There are 11 in total in Fnaf 2 compared to Willy's 8, so he does have a few more to deal with, but none of the new additions have anything that would be particularly helpful against the janitor. The puppet can maybe fly, I guess. We're also told how a simple flashlight can mess with the animatronics, as well as the addition of the Freddy mask, which completely disguises the user from every animatronic except for Foxy and the puppet. With a way to stun the animatronics on command, as well as a get out of jail free card via the mask, the janitor should sweep right through Fnaf 2 pretty easily. William in Fnaf 3 should be the easiest for Nick. Springtrap, despite killing a few unsuspecting adults in his career, mostly focused on children who trusted the big yellow bunny. The janitor is ripping him in half, at least in a fair 1v1. In the case that William got some prep time, I could see him creating something or using other animatronics to his advantage. The sound discs are the biggest wild card here, since we don't know if the janitor has any mental resistances, or if he'd figure out what they do in time before getting killed. If he does, he wins pretty easily. If not, then William could win. Fnaf 4 is complicated, but if they're real machines the way we see them in-game, the janitor takes them easily. I should mention again their aforementioned weaknesses. Electrical shocks can stun and knock each of them out via their animatronic parts, and fire can release the souls from their metal bodies. If the janitor caught onto this in any capacity, the verse is pretty much done for. Taser, 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 and each one is down. None of the animatronics can overpower him or reliably land a killing blow. Like I said, this guy took multiple slashes that were capable of chopping people in two. The janitor wipes these guys, from sister location all the way through security breach. Well, at least except for one. The Mimic is shown to be stronger than every other animatronic we've seen before, even Circus Baby's 7-foot self. The Mimic seems to be more of a stalker type of enemy, closer to Mr. X than Freddy Fazbear himself. I'll just keep it real, the Mimic has way better feats all around than the janitor has, or any of the Willy's Wonderland crew. He survived being run over, which was able to absolutely destroy the racist turtle guy in the movie. Nick Cage is strong enough to punch and tear through a gorilla who is capable of surviving multiple shotgun blasts. We haven't seen the upper limits of either character's strength and durability. Unless the Scooper really did kill the Mimic, then there you have it. There is a difference in fighting skill, but the Mimic could very well learn and adapt to the janitor's fighting style. Do I think the janitor could win within the context of a movie or a game? Yeah, sure, kinda like a Laurie Strode versus Michael Myers situation, but in a head-to-head, all-out brawl, the Mimic most likely wins more times than not. I'm sure the Mimic will come back in future entries with even more feats, and who knows, maybe we'll get Willy's Wonderland 2 someday to show us even more of stoic Nick Cage. But what do you think? Can the janitor beat the Mimic and in turn solo the verse? Or am I completely wrong and he actually loses a 1v1 against Funtime Foxy? Let me know down in the comments. Huge thanks to NoDody for today's thumbnail. His Twitter's down in the description as per usual. Next video is me complaining about the FNAF lore, so subscribe to see when that's out, and I'll see you guys later.